Now, it's the second day of Indian Prime Minister Modi's visit to France, and there's lots lined up for the Indian Prime Minister, including signing some key agreements and attending the Bastille Day celebrations, as New Delhi and Paris mark 25 years of partnership. The Prime Minister was conferred with the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor. This is France's highest civilian and military honor. And with this, he joins the elite list of leaders who've received this honor. How will the India-France ties evolve going forward? What sort of deals can we expect in the defense and space sectors? To discuss this, we have with us Rakesh Sood, former ambassador of India to France. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, sir, it's a packed day for Indian Prime Minister. He's set to attend the Bastille Day celebrations. What is your assessment of the India-France ties at this juncture?
Well, I think India-France ties have been moving steadily in a more positive direction since 1998. France was the first country with which India signed its strategic partnership agreement. Now, today we have more than 30 countries with which we have such agreements, but the French agreement has grown in scope. Initially, in 1998, when it was signed, there were three pillars: defense, nuclear, and space. Since then, additional pillars have been added, like counterterrorism, climate change. Climate change became extremely important when France hosted the COP21, where Prime Minister Modi and the French leader, they inaugurated the International Solar Alliance. So climate change has become extremely important. Then urbanization has been another major platform on which we have been working together quite closely, because France has some of the best public infrastructure when it comes to railways, roads, highways, and so on. So it's a packed agenda, and I'm quite sure that we will see a number of agreements and a number of announcements in all these areas. And in addition, probably also some people-to-people connect, because that is one thing which has not been there. It is, the Indian diaspora is much more active in countries which are English-speaking, like whether it is Britain, whether it is America, whether it is Australia or Canada. But in France, it is not so much the diaspora. So the relationship has been led at a government-to-government level. And now the other parts of it, the business-to-business and the people-to-people, are other areas which need to be developed to make it more robust.
Right, sir. In fact, Prime Minister Modi is also set to focus on defense and space cooperation. What are some of the key deals that we can expect with regards to this? And how do you see this strengthening India-France ties going forward?
Well, defense and space have always been there. I mean, in fact, I don't know, perhaps your listeners may not remember, but one of the first foreign aircraft that we bought after we became independent was the Uragan. This was followed by the Mystère. I'm now talking of the 50s and 60s. We also bought the Elysee helicopters from France. In the 1980s, we bought the Jaguar, which is an Anglo-French production. We also bought the Mirage 2000s. So the defense track has always been there, and we've already seen that the Defense Acquisition Committee yesterday cleared two proposals, in the sense that the first step of acceptance of necessity for purchase of 26 Rafale maritime version, which can fly from the deck of an aircraft carrier. So 26 of these aircraft have been cleared for negotiations and purchase from Dassault, as well as 3 additional Scorpions. I think it's good to remember that we are already building 6 Scorpions with the French Naval Group. That was an agreement that was signed in 2005. The 6th submarine will be delivered either later this year or next year. The assembling and production is being carried out at Mazgaon docks. They have developed the necessary expertise, and so 3 more will be added. We are also looking at other possibilities in the defense field, in terms of perhaps aircraft engines or helicopter engines, because Safran has been working with HAL on this project for quite some time. So these would be some of the defense-related projects that I think will see the light of day.
Right, sir. Now, France got India's order for the marine jets over and above American Super Hornets, which also India was considering. So, do you think this may strike some sort of competition between the United States and France?
Well, I don't think so. I think there is I mean, as long as we don't make our own submarines and we don't make our own fighter aircraft, I think our demands are going to be such that we would be relying more on foreign vendors like the American companies like Boeing or Lockheed or the French company Dassault. In the past, all our aircraft, other than the Mirage and the Jaguar that I mentioned, they all came from the Soviet Union. And today, for example, we have something like 272 Sukhoi 30 Mark 1, and we've ordered an additional 36. So we probably have one of the largest fleets of Russian origin aircraft as well. We also have currently the MiG-29s, which have been refurbished, which are being used on aircraft carriers. Many of our submarines are kilo-class submarines that have come from Soviet Union and Russia. So as we move to other sources till we become Atmanirbhar, as the Prime Minister has declared, that is the eventual goal, we will continue to import. We'll also see how much of this becomes co-production, because let's say if we are in a position to make aircraft engines, and but it will take time. So over the next 5 to 10 years, I think defense will remain a strong pillar both in India, France, as well as India-US relations.
Right, sir. And France has also accepted UPI. It's a major boost to the market expansion of India's unified payment interface. What can you tell us about this? Do you see UPI being integrated into other countries as well?
Well, the ideal thing would be if we could get the UPI acceptance in Brussels, which means that it would apply to the EU. But we've seen this a small beginning with France. It's a positive step. But if EU were to give a green light on it, I think that would mark a major international acceptance. But France, the other advantage with France is that France is a resident power in the Indian Ocean. France is the second largest exclusive economic zone in the Indian Ocean, 2.7 million square kilometers, and it has permanent presence because it has its overseas territories, the Reunion Islands and the Mayotte Islands. So this is why France has a permanent military presence, which makes it a natural partner for us in the Indian Ocean, especially the Western Indian Ocean. And the two countries had issued a vision statement on the Indo-Pacific a few years ago. So there are a lot of convergences with France. The most important convergence is an ideological convergence, because with the end of the Cold War, France too, like us, was a strong believer in multipolarity. What we saw in the end of the Cold War was actually more of a unipolar world. But both France and India kept talking and urging countries that we need to move towards a more multipolar world. Today, that multipolarity appears to be becoming more of a reality than it appeared in 1990s. But that has been a long-standing ideological convergence.
Right, sir. Now, that being said, let's also discuss the European Parliament motion which urges New Delhi to control the violence in its northeastern state of Manipur. Now, India's Ministry of External Affairs has called it an interference in its internal matters. So, what is your assessment of this situation?
Well, the ministry has officially stated that it is an interference in our internal matters. But the fact remains that we are aware that now, for many weeks now, we are seeing in a border state a serious amount of disturbance. A number of lives have been lost. There has been polarization. Different communities don't seem to be able to talk to each other. They're asking for one of the communities, the Kuki community, is asking for autonomy. And I think that it is a serious issue, particularly because it happens to take place in a border province. So it is up to us to deal with it. And I think it is quite natural that friendly countries will urge us. They're not. The European Union is not saying that they want to come and resolve our matters. In fact, I saw a statement by the U.S. Ambassador Eric Garcetti offering his good offices for mediation. I thought that that was a little presumptuous and also somewhat unwanted. But I do think that our friends have a right to be concerned, because when they see this ongoing disturbance, they do feel that we are ignoring something which is of concern, and it should be.
Right. Now, sir, finally, with this visit, how do you see India's position evolving in the international realm?
France is a major power, has always been. It's a permanent member of the UN Security Council. It was the first P5 member to support India's claim to be a permanent member of the UN Security Council. So I think that India's position in a multipolar world is what is relevant. However, we will have to choose our paths carefully, because in the past, the Cold War, which created a bipolar world, was taking place far away from our neighborhood. It was taking place essentially between the dividing line ran through Europe, East Europe and West Europe. Today, we are seeing rivalries at our doorstep. I mean, China is a major power. In the past, we used to say that we should keep the Indian Ocean free of superpowers. But what do you do if your neighbor itself becomes a superpower? So we will therefore have to find our way in a more delicate fashion. We don't have the luxury of standing on the sidelines. We will have to get engaged, but we will have to get engaged not as an ally, not as a junior partner, but as an equal partner, taking into account our own national interests.
Right. Well, Ambassador Su, thank you so much for joining us on WION with your insights and inputs on this.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.